Before the Romans came, before Hannibal's elephants thundered across the Alps, before Hamilcar Barca rallied his troops beneath the burning moon, there she was. They called her Tanit, the veiled goddess. On the cliffs of Byrsa, overlooking the sea where ships arrived from Greece and Greece, a goddess watched, a silent, shadowed presence. Over the centuries, her worshippers carved her image into stone, a crescent moon between two hands raised in supplication. Sometimes the moon held an urn, sometimes it stretched like a flame. Scholars debate these symbols even now. Was the crescent moon her watchful eye, hidden by design? Was the urn a vessel of safety or an omen of death? What did the crescent flame signify? A beacon or a pyre? Even now, the archive offers fragments, not certainties. Did the Phoenicians bring her from Tyre, their great southern home? Did the Carthaginians mold her in their own image? Was she always veiled, always distant, always powerful? We cannot say. But as the temple walls whisper her story, as the sands sift over the altars, as the architrave groans above the columns, we can try to listen. In the heart of the archive, I show you this golden plaque. A bull grasps a flower. A fish leaps above. At its center, the crescent is clear. And beneath, 3 letters carved forever young, TNT. What do they mean? Scholars wrangle. Some say Tanit, some say the bull of Tanit. But why would the bull carry the goddess's name? Is she a beast? Is she a sacrifice? Is she the observer of sacrifice? Look closely. Do you see a face in the bull's flank? Do you see a horn or a hand reaching to the sky? Does the fish become a bird, wings outstretched in flight? Is that a flower or a flame held aloft? Does the crescent stretch into a third dimension? Can you reach out and touch it? Your interpretation is key. What do you see? What do you believe? You alone can know. This is the archive of forgotten gods, and it offers you fragments, not answers. It offers you symbols, not scripture. It offers you a goddess concealed in every age, Tanit, the veiled goddess. In the labyrinth of her mysteries, what can you be sure of? That Rome hated her. When they sacked Carthage, they did not plunder her temple. They burned it. The Vestal virgins of Rome did not offer her incense. They scattered her worshippers to the lions. And after she slipped into the shadows, leaving echoes in the darkest corners of the Mediterranean. Did she survive in Jewish lore as the goddess of Samaria? Did she linger in the tales of Circe, Medea, and Scylla? Did she hide in plain sight as the pagan goddess Astrea? Questions, not answers. Mysteries, not morals. The sands of time sift patiently, revealing only a fragment of this terrible, beautiful goddess. And so I ask you, listener, as you close this chapter of the archive, what will you take with you? The fearsome whispers of a goddess who devoured children. The haunting vision of a hooded woman with a crescent on her head. The rumor that the Carthaginians dipped their bread in blood. Take with you whatever you must, whatever you can bear. The archive does not judge your beliefs. It only offers you its pieces. If you came seeking purity, you will leave covered in ashes. If you came seeking spectacle, you will find only silence. But if you came seeking what lies beneath the surface, if you came seeking what the Romans could not destroy, you might find something in the way. The moon curls around the horns of the bull in the leaping. Fish in the petals or flames held aloft in the careful carving of her name, TNT. When you look again, you may see the goddess not as conqueror, priest, or worshiper, but as the archive itself, eternal, patient, whispering. She is waiting. She always waits. And in this place of ruins, memories rise like dust motes in a sunbeam, carrying the scent of incense and blood. Here on the broken steps of an ancient stair, here in the fractured capital of a fallen column, here where the mosaic has yielded to the sand, you catch a glimpse of her, the veiled goddess, the crescent mother, Tanit. What do you see there? What have you found, traveler? The other pilgrims ask. You brush the dust away, but the wind takes your breath and scatters the fragments further. You kneel, tracing the marks with shaking hands. It is a wall, a broken wall in the ruined city of Carthage, long destroyed and long since buried. But that is not what draws you here. It is what is carved within the fractured stone. You found not a name, not a face, not a story, but a symbol. A strange and simple symbol, yet one that sings with a terrible music in the silence of this empty city. You move deeper into the archive, and the first mark you encounter is neither word nor face, but symbol. On broken sandstone walls beneath the fallen roofs of Carthage, you find the crescent and the disc. A moon cradles a circle like a mother holds an unborn child, and the symbol seems simple, but it is never simple. To gaze upon it is to hear a secret denied, to feel the tug of meaning erased by time and war. The crescent hand disc was hers, the emblem of Tanit, and yet its meaning has dissolved like salt into water. Some say it was the moon, her veil of silver stretched over the world. Others claim it was the sun, a hidden star kept within her grasp. Others still whisper it was not celestial at all, but a portal, a wound, an eye. The mystery is what keeps it alive, the silence what makes it sacred. When Rome conquered, they struck out the mark, chiseling it away. But in the nights of Carthage's survivors, hands traced it still in ash and on clay. Mothers whispered it in lullabies. Sailors carved it into the hulls of ships. Priests etched it on urns they dared not show. A symbol erased, yet never fully erased. A forbidden sign glowing faintly even when forgotten. You are told of an obscure festival in Carthage, when the crescent disc was painted in white ash. Upon the foreheads of those chosen to walk in silence across the city, they walked barefoot, carrying no words, their lips sealed, their eyes lifted to the moon. The ritual is gone, dissolved in the destruction of empire, but fragments remain in inscriptions, half legible, half suspected. A procession of silence, a moon that was not the moon, a sign that was not to be spoken. It is here, as you press your fingers against the rough carving, that you feel the whisper of heresy. Why was the mark forbidden? Did the symbol hold power that Rome feared? Or was the silence itself the source of power, the refusal to define, the refusal to clarify? Scholars argue endlessly. Some claim it was a fertility sign, nothing more. Some claim it was an astral emblem, a reflection of Ishtar or Astarte, nothing unique. Others whispered that the triangle, the raised hands, the crescent, and the disc together formed a code no scholar has yet broken, a theology had veersed by fire. You hear the sound of scribes debating in modern halls, voices rising. The crescent hand disc is merely lunar worship. No, it is solar syncretism. No, it is the seal of Tanit's unseen name, yet none are certain. Archaeological fragments are partial, inscriptions incomplete, rituals silenced. You realize the uncertainty is not a flaw, but the truth itself. The goddess is forbidden not because she was known, but because she was never fully known. Her mystery was her essence, her silence, her power. You stand up slowly, brushing the dust from your robes. You remember then the stories told around campfires, the ones about pilgrims lost in the desert, stumbling upon ancient ruins and finding strange symbols carved in stone. Symbols that sang to them in the wind, calling them forth with whispers from beyond the grave. And you know now that these tales are true. The crescent disc pulls you onward. You are compelled deeper into the ruined city, through shattered streets and fallen arches, past broken columns and crumbling towers. All the while the symbol dances before your eyes, beckoning, enticing, drawing you ever closer to the heart of the forgotten city. You follow willingly. What choice do you have? The ruined city stretches before you, silent and desolate. It is a graveyard of ages past, a monument to empires long since turned to dust. The crescent hand disc guides you, leading you to places where the earth is disturbed and the stones are rearranged. And still you seek, you search, you yearn to understand, to decipher the secret meaning of the forbidden sign. But understanding evades you. The deeper you delve, the more elusive the answers become, and so you wander a solitary pilgrim in a sea of sand, forever seeking, forever lost in the labyrinthine heart of the forgotten city. You are a single soul amidst the ruins of an empire, bound to a quest for knowledge that may forever elude your grasp. The crescent hand disc beckons, yet the truth remains tantalizingly out of reach. You descend deeper into the earth, the air growing colder with every step. Crumbled walls of stone surround you, remnants of a past so distant it feels mythical. But here, in the silence beneath Carthage, you know you are very real. All around, stone coffins are buried in the ash, and the silence seems to amplify the beating of your heart. What the conquerors could not destroy, the march of time has almost erased, but not quite. And there before you, nestled amidst the rubble and ash, is a glimpse of eternity. A low passage opens into the ground, leading down into darkness. Something about it feels profoundly wrong, deeply disturbing. With a deep breath, you step inside, bracing yourself for whatever secrets this place holds. The air grows colder, heavier. The passage descends, opening into a large chamber. Within, rows upon rows of stone urns are lined along the walls. Each urn is ornately carved with the same design, a circle intersected by 3 crescents, the emblem of Tanit, the veiled goddess of Carthage. Their mouths are sealed, their bellies full of offerings whose truth remains obscured by time and by fear. You move between them, as if walking through a cemetery of whispers, and though the dust clings to your skin, you sense that the silence is not dead, only waiting. The shrine is no temple of grandeur. There are no columns left, no mosaics preserved, only fractured stone and the faint traces of soot along the ceiling, as if smoke had once pressed against it night after night. You kneel by one of the urns, its lid cracked, and the smell of ancient ash rises faintly, though centuries have passed. Some say these urns held children, or bodies burned as offerings to Tanit. Others argue they were simply vessels of commemoration, burials for infants who died naturally. The debate has torn through the minds of scholars for decades, and still the mystery remains. Were these sacred urns sacrifices or funerals? Were they offerings of terror, or the only remembrance left to grieving mothers? The truth lies sealed in the ash, and no hand can open it without erasing what little is left. Yet there are fragments of testimony. Ancient Roman writers accuse the Carthaginians of burning children alive to please their goddess. Their words heavy with accusation, drenched in the venom of enemies. Yet archaeological traces do not speak with such clarity. Bones and urns are too fragmented, too inconsistent, their stories muted by time. Some historians believe the accusations were propaganda, a demonization of an enemy city. Others whispered that the stories contain echoes of truth, that rituals once performed in secrecy were later exaggerated by those who hated Carthage. The unresolved question lingers like smoke. Was Tanit's shrine a place of remembrance or of sacrifice? You cannot know. No one can. And that impossibility makes the shrine forbidden ground, a sacred scar in the earth. You see in your mind a night long ago, the moon is high, its silver gaze piercing the ruins. Priests, veiled in dark robes, descend with urns carried in solemn procession. Torches flicker, and the walls shimmer with shadows. In silence, they line the urns along the walls of the shrine, each one marked with the crescentan disc, each one sealed with ash. No words are spoken, 4 words could betray. Only silence, only the sound of fire, only the crack of burning wood. The ritual is complete, though no explanation is ever given. The participants leave the chamber, and the earth seals their silence. Was this devotion or dread? Was it faith or fear? You cannot tell, and that is the heart of the mystery. The forbidden belief whispers through your ears, that the ashes themselves hold power. Some fragments of lore suggest that priests would stir the remains with sacred oil, creating a mixture that, when burned again, was said to call down visions from Tanit herself. Such beliefs were condemned as heresy even within her cult, for to disturb the urns was to risk exile. Yet the idea persisted, echoing across centuries in rumors and unproven tales. The urns, the ashes, the smoke together, they were more than funerary, more than memory. They were a portal to the unseen, an invocation through fire. Your breath slows as you realize that this shrine beneath ashes is not silent by accident. It is silent by command. Every urn, every fragment, every inscription has been pressed into silence, and that silence is what makes it sacred. Scholars can argue, archaeologists can dig, but the silence will always remain louder than any answer. The goddess herself ensured that her truth would never be fully known. As you rise, you notice symbols scratched faintly into the walls. Not carvings of artistry, but hurried marks, triangles, and crescents, etched like desperate prayers. They overlap, they fade, they crumble, yet they remain. Some are drawn upside down, as though inverting the sacred form carried its own hidden power. Others are paired with unfamiliar signs, half legible, as though merging Tanit with other gods, other worships. These are heretical marks, unauthorized prayers, forbidden by any official cult but carved by hands that could not remain silent. The shrine beneath ashes became not only a place of ritual, but a place of rebellion, where the exiled carved their desperation into stone. You close your eyes, and for a moment the shrine breathes. You hear the faint sound of crying, of prayers whispered in a tongue you cannot translate, of footsteps fading up the stairs, and then nothing, only silence. Only the ash that clings to your fingertips. The unsolved mystery hovers like smoke in your lungs. Were these urns a testimony of cruelty or of grief? Did Tanit demand sacrifice, or did she comfort the dead? Did the shrine beneath ashes bear witness to horror or to mourning? Every scholar who studies Carthage seeks to answer, and every scholar leaves empty-handed. Perhaps that is her design. Perhaps Tanit's veil is meant never to be lifted. Perhaps the shrine beneath ashes was never for the living to understand. You step back into the dim passage, leaving the urns behind, but the ash follows. It always follows. Once touched, it clings forever, a reminder of what you have seen, of what you cannot unsee. The shrine is beneath ashes, but the memory rises like smoke, rising, spreading, staining every thought with the forbidden goddess's silence. The air itself seems to crackle with remembered heat. You tread further into the depths, and the whisper grows heavier, as though the air itself thickens with fire. Behind you, the shrine lingers in memory, but ahead lies a darker tale. One that has never been fully silenced, the children of fire. To even speak of it feels like treachery, for it is the accusation that turned the world against Carthage, the story that made Tanit forbidden. Ancient writers, hostile to the city, told of infants laid upon the heated arms of a bronze statue, consumed by flames as the crowd chanted and drums drowned out the cries. Yet scholars argue still, and your breath trembles as you recall how easily history can be shaped by enemies. Did the fires burn for truth or for slander? Did the goddess demand it, or did Rome invent it? You step into the imagined scene. The night is dense with smoke. The moon's silver eye glows above, but its light cannot pierce the crimson glow of the fire. The people gather veils over their faces, and the drums pound like thunder against the earth. They say it is to drown out the sound, but you do not hear the sound. You feel it in your chest, as though the cries themselves never left the air. A bronze figure towers above, faceless, with outstretched arms, flames licking at its form. The people chant Tanit's name, Tanit, Tanit, each syllable a wound. The ritual is forbidden to imagine, yet you see it, hear it, feel it. But you also hear another story, whispered in quieter halls. That there were no such fires, that these were lies of Rome, crafted to blacken Carthage's name. That the urns were funerary, the shrine a cemetery, and that Tanit was a goddess of protection, not destruction. The truth dissolves between these two versions, and you are left with the ash of uncertainty. No answer clears the smoke. Some scholars point to inscriptions naming her as the face of Baal, as though to bind her to the god of fire. Others argue she was closer to a mother goddess, protector of fertility invoked by women in childbirth, which is true, which is heresy, you cannot know. And so the mystery itself becomes the fire that burns. The forbidden ritual, whether real or imagined, takes shape in your mind. Priests in veils carry torches, lining the courtyard, their silence more unsettling than any chant. Mothers approach with urns, some empty, some heavy, each marked with the crescent. An infant is presented, and the crowd looks away, not out of cruelty, but out of dread. They cannot watch, for to watch would be to admit truth. Flames surge, drums roar, silence spreads. When the ritual ends, the urns are sealed, carried down to the shrine beneath ashes. No words are spoken, no record written, only whispers. Did it happen? Or was it all a shadow born of slander? You feel the weight of both, unable to dismiss either. Your fingers brush against a steely carved with Tanit's sign. The triangle, the crescent, the raised hands. Was this symbol painted in ash over the children of fire? Or was it carved to protect them in death, a prayer for their souls? The ambiguity cuts deeper than certainty. The mark does not tell you whether Tanit demanded or defended. The mark only whispers, silence. The unsolved theological mystery deepens. Why would a goddess of fertility, invoked for protection in childbirth, be accused of demanding sacrifice? Was she both mother and devourer, life and death entwined? Or was her name twisted by enemies until she became a monster she never was? Scholars cannot agree. Some argue she was aligned with Astarte, who never demanded such rituals. Others whisper she merged with Baal-Haman, whose worship is more shadowed, whose fires may have burned. The blending of gods, the merging of names, leaves you lost in a labyrinth of half-truths. Was Tanit an independent deity, or merely a mask for another? Was the accusation of fire born of theology, or of politics? Each possibility feels forbidden to pursue, as though even the question is heresy. And yet, as you stand in the ruins, you feel the heat. You feel the fire, even though the stones are cold. You hear the drums, even though the desert wind is silent. You hear the faintest echo of cries, though centuries have passed. The children of fire are not just history, they are memory. They remain in the ash, in the urns, in the whispers of scholars who cannot agree. And they remain in the shadow of Tanit, whether by truth or by slander, whether by faith or by fear. You close your eyes, and the fire flickers inside your mind. It does not fade when you open them again. It lingers, like smoke caught in your lungs, like ash pressed against your skin. This is the price of remembering. This is the mark of forbidden gods. To hear their stories is to carry their silence, their mystery, their dread. You leave the imagined courtyard behind, but the fire follows. You cannot decide if you have just witnessed devotion, cruelty, propaganda, or all three. The mystery remains unsolved, unyielding, forbidden. You carry it with you, deeper into the descent, deeper into Tanit's shadow. You leave the smoke of fire and descend into cooler stone where the air is damp and the walls glisten faintly with moisture. Beneath Carthage, there were chambers of water, cisterns carved to catch the rain. But whispers tell of something more. The forbidden waters of the temple. You walk down slippery steps into darkness where the ceiling is low and echoes carry like sighs. At the heart of these underground vaults, priests once gathered by moonlight. Their torches quenched, their hands dipped into the stillness. This was not mere water for thirst. This was the water of ritual, forbidden to those outside the veil. You kneel beside the pool. Your reflection trembles on its black surface. The stories say the priestesses of Tanit bathed here before sacred rites, their veils soaked and wrung out as symbols of renewal. But there are other whispers, darker, more unsettling, that the waters themselves were believed to absorb the memory of the dead, carrying voices of those offered in sacrifice or lost in grief. To drink of these waters was to risk madness, to hear voices you were not meant to hear. And yet, some came willingly. Some sought the whispers, believing them to be prophecy. Archaeologists have uncovered channels that fed these cisterns, intricate systems of engineering, but what unsettles scholars most are the inscriptions carved near their entrances. Fragmented phrases, the water remembers, the moon is reflected, hands washed in silence. What do they mean? Were these simply metaphors of purity? Or do they point to a hidden theology, one that saw water not as cleansing but as haunted, a vessel of memory rather than renewal? The academic mystery remains unresolved, each theory rising and falling like ripples across the pool. The forbidden ritual you glimpse is one of immersion. Imagine the night of full moon. The chamber is lit only by the light reflected down a shaft, striking the surface of the cistern. The water glows faintly, silver and trembling. Priestesses veiled in linen step into the pool. They do not speak, for words would shatter the reflection. They submerge their hands, their faces, even their whole bodies, rising dripping in silence. Some say they emerged changed, their eyes brighter, their voices carrying tones not their own. Some claim they spoke in languages unknown, as if the water had lent them voices of the dead. Whether true or heretical invention, the story remains unsettling and forbidden. The belief surrounding the waters lingers even in fragments of Punic text. Some invocations mention Tanit of the source, linking her not only to fire in the crescent, but also to hidden springs. Was she goddess of both flame and water, of both destruction and renewal? The paradox unsettles, for how can one goddess embody opposites so absolute? Yet in forgotten theologies, Opposites are not contradictions. They are masks of the same divinity. The forbidden goddess may have been both. Fire that consumes, water that remembers. As you listen, the whisper of water grows louder. You lean closer, and for a moment you think you hear voices. They are faint, fractured, speaking in tongues you cannot decipher. Are they memories preserved in stone? Or only your imagination stirred by the chamber's echo? Scholars debate whether the sounds of these cisterns were part of the ritual. The acoustics are uncanny whispers amplified, multiplied, as though the walls themselves speak back. Perhaps this was the theology, not water that remembers, but stone that answers. An architecture of echoes mistaken for voices of the dead. The mystery endures, and no answer resolves it. You dip your own fingers into the water. It is cool, almost painfully so, and clings to your skin like oil. You raise your hand and watch droplets fall, one by one, each splash echoing in the chamber like a drumbeat. For a moment, you feel as if the water is not outside you, but within you. Running through your veins, carrying whispers you cannot silence. You shiver, though the air is still. The ritual has touched you, though you did not mean it to. You imagine those who sought exile rather than silence. Some say heretics came to these waters to carve forbidden signs, symbols of Tanit merged with other gods, inscriptions of syncretism that risked punishment, a crescent entwined with a serpent, a triangle split in two, a disc pierced with a line of fire. Such carvings, half erased, still linger faintly on the stone, their meanings lost. Were they marks of rebellion, or desperate prayers for understanding? The line between heresy and devotion blurs as you study them. The theological mystery deepens further. If Tanit's waters were memory, then who remembered whom? Did the goddess remember her people, or did the people remember her through water? Was the cistern an archive of the divine, or merely a mirror of human grief? The silence does not answer. It only multiplies the questions. You rise at last, leaving droplets to fall from your hands back into the pool. You hear them splash, and each ripple seems to whisper your name, though you did not speak it. The waters of the temple are forbidden, not because they are dangerous to the body, but because they never stop echoing. Once you touch them, they follow you. Once you hear them, they linger in your dreams. You leave the chamber, but you carry its silence, its ripples, its unresolvable memory. And so you ascend out of the damp air and back toward the dust of ruins, knowing you have only descended deeper. Fire behind you, water within you, mystery ahead. The forbidden goddess waits still, veiled, watching, whispering through symbols you cannot decipher, through rituals you cannot prove, through memories you cannot silence. You find yourself in a vast cistern, its vaulted ceiling lost in darkness above. Damp seeps into your bones as you pick your way through the labyrinth of pools, their surfaces mirroring the meager torchlight. Suddenly, the passage opens into a chamber. You step inside, and the air shifts, tasting of dust and forgotten stone. And there you meet her face, or rather the absence of it, the mask without eyes. You've seen it carved on stelis, etched into pottery shards, painted faintly on fragments of wall. Everywhere you turn, you encounter the same enigmatic symbol. A triangle, simple, stark, almost childlike in its geometry, topped by a bar and crowned with a crescent. On either side, two arms rise upward, empty hands stretching to the heavens. It is no face. It is no body. It is an abstraction, a shape that whispers more than it reveals. You stare, waiting for features to emerge, for eyes or mouth to form, but none ever do. The scholars argued in hushed tones. Was this merely symbolic, a shorthand for divinity, like a hieroglyph of worship? Or was it her true visage, forbidden to be drawn as human? Forbidden to be given features that might bind her? Some argued it was a fertility emblem, the triangle a womb, the crescent a Wam's arc, the arms a gesture of birth. Others whispered that the facelessness itself was sacred, that to look upon her was to see absence, to be consumed by silence. No one knows. No one agrees. The faceless mask is an enigma, an unresolved mystery that has haunted archaeology for centuries. You step closer to one of the steles, its lines still sharp, despite the centuries. The triangle seems to gaze back, not with eyes, but with emptiness. You feel your own reflection stripped away, as though the faceless goddess stares through you rather than at you. You whisper her forbidden name, Tanit, and the stone does not answer. Silence is her reply, but it is a silence that feels heavy, intentional, like a veil drawn over truth. In the dim torchlight, you decipher the faded carvings on the walls. They tell a story, or rather they show a series of scenes. A procession winding through a sacred grove, hands raised in supplication, figures standing before an altar, hands open in offering. But always, always in the center, the veiled priestess, her face hidden behind the triangle and crescent, conducting the rituals, guiding the worshippers. Each scene deepens the mystery. What did these rituals accomplish? What bargain was struck in the sacred silence? The closer you look, the more questions arise, but no answers. Some say to truly understand Tanit, you must experience her through the ritual, through the stripping away of self, until only the faceless mask remains. They speak of a rite of initiation, a blinding ordeal by which one could be reborn into silence. You shudder, realizing that to comprehend her, one must surrender sight, perhaps even sanity. Are you willing to risk everything to peer behind the veil? As the night deepens, whispers echo around you. The faceless mask seems to watch your every move. Is it a coincidence that you keep finding it? Or are you being led, guided by unseen hands through this subterranean labyrinth? What purpose does it serve? What truth does it guard? With each step, the atmosphere grows colder, the silence more profound. You feel the weight of unseen eyes upon you. Are you being tested? Judged? For what? For merely seeking knowledge? For yearning to understand? Then you find it, a small shrine tucked into the labyrinth's heart. Upon it, the faceless mask is engraved, not as a symbol, but as a living presence. Before it, a single oil lamp flickers, casting long dancing shadows. And you know, with a sudden, terrifying certainty, that you are not alone. Something watches you from the darkness, something beyond comprehension, something that hungers for the sightless and the voiceless. You realize that to seek Tanit is to court oblivion, that her silence demands a terrible price. Can you bear it? Will you pay it? The choice is yours, seeker, as you stand before the faceless mask in the heart of the silent labyrinth. What will you do now? The wind whispers across the ruins of Byer's Hill, carrying with it the scent of time and the murmur of long-vanished prayers. Climb higher. Ascend among the shattered stones where desert light cuts sharp against shattered stone, and the silence of absence shifts into the silence of conquest. For here's the memory that cannot be undone. Rome's purge of the goddess. Carthage was not only defeated, it was erased. Its temples were broken, its libraries burned, its gods forbidden. And among those gods, none suffered so deep a silence as Tanit. Her sanctuaries were torn down, her images struck out, her name buried under rubble. The goddess was condemned not with words, but with obliteration. Walk slowly. Pause beside crumbling columns where worshippers once stood, where priests tended sacred fire, where the air thrummed with the chant of supplications. What do you see? You see Tanit here at all? The conqueror's purpose was total erasure. This was not pillage, not the preservation of some stones for future grandeur, but obliteration. Destroy the temples, shatter the idols, turn the sacred places into profane. Leave nothing standing that could be mistaken for worship. Look closer. Can you find her here? Sense more than see the shadow of a column, the ghost of an altar, the whisper of a name carved and then hacked away? In the silence of conquest, the goddess is most present. Rome's legions left this place in 146 BCE after burning Carthage for 17 days, consuming homes, streets, temples, and with them the memory of a people. Survivors were sold into slavery, their voices scattered across the empire, their gods stripped from their tongues. And yet, whispers say that Rome feared Tanit more than any other. Her name appears scarcely in Roman accounts, always veiled, always diminished, as though writing it would invite her back. Her signs were carved out, her altars toppled. The faceless goddess was forced into exile, not by choice, but by decree of empire. Descend now to the lower slopes, where the great basilica of Caesar Augustus stands defiant, or perhaps defiantly empty. Beneath its arches, imagine the bustling marketplace merchants and artisans, plying their trades, the murmur of bartering, The laughter of children at play, the scent of spices, mingling with the tang of fish from the harbor, all beneath the watchful eyes of Tanit's priests and priestesses. Imagine them standing before the temple of the veiled goddess, holding aloft libations, singing hymns of praise, invoking her blessings upon the city and its people. Now imagine the silence of occupation, the desecrated temple, the shuttered doorways, the choked fountains. You are in the heart of the conquered city, surrounded by ghosts. Hear the echoes of a people silenced, of prayers turned to ashes, of a city that once pulsed with life. Now it is a graveyard of memories. Kneel, touch the cold stone, let the silence seep into your bones, let it tell its tale of loss and longing, of faith buried beneath the rubble, but never extinguished. Here below the conqueror's gaze, a secret ritual persisted. They fled the city in thousands, families clutching their gods, each deity a gamble against oblivion. Some made it across the sea to distant shores, others perished on the road, on ship, or in the slave markets. Those who survived carried hidden stelas bearing Tanit's mark, veiled under cloth, smuggled across the sea to far lands. They buried them beneath thresholds, believing the goddess would guard their exiled homes. Even in lands where Rome's law reached, the symbol endured, scratched faintly into pottery, disguised within weaving patterns, sewn secretly into garments. The ritual was no longer fire or water or ash, but concealment, the hiding of the goddess so she could not be purged entirely. To keep Tanit was to commit heresy against empire, to risk punishment, exile, or death, and yet the whispers insist it was done. Conquest is a sieve filtering out memories, leaving behind only what the victors deem important. History is measured by marble columns and arching vaults, but lived in the spaces between them. In the rituals hidden from view, in the silence forced upon worshippers. The grand narrative silences the whispers, but does it extinguish them? Carthage may be gone, but its story survives because people kept its memory alive, defying the conqueror's intent. Their defiance was quiet, like the lilt of a veiled goddess. Like the crescent moon in the night sky, she endures. Listen closely. Do you hear her in the wind? You descend again into shadow. Here the silence of conquest shifts into the silence of language, echoes in Punic shadows. You are in a place where the air grows thick with the ghosts of words. Above, the sun beats down, indifferent to the secrets buried below. Here, Punic ghosts stir among the ruins, whispering of a tongue almost forgotten. A tongue that once rang with life along Mediterranean shores, carried on the winds of trade, sung by sailors under star-filled skies. The Punic tongue, vibrant and warm, the tongue of merchants and navigators, is now nothing but a phantom limb. A ghost of syllables dancing on the edge of hearing. The language lingers only in fragments, in broken prayers carved into stone, half legible, half lost. You kneel before a stele and trace its faded letters with your hand. The words rise like smoke from ash, fragments of devotion, fractured hymns, unsteady grammar. They speak of Tanit, but they never speak clearly. Every syllable is contested, every phrase a puzzle. These whispers tell of a devotion both fervent and furtive, of a people holding their prayers close, never finishing a line, never giving Rome the satisfaction of understanding. For long after Rome's purge, worshippers of Tanit are said to have spoken her prayers in fragments, never completing a line, a word here, a phrase there, silence filling the gaps. It was a way of keeping the goddess alive without being caught, a way of speaking without truly speaking. You imagine the circle of exiles murmuring in half sentences, voices overlapping, creating a chant of fragments that no outsider could understand. A prayer built from echoes, a hymn without a body. Yet amidst this ghostly realm, you hear other whispers, rumors of a different kind, stories of gatherings in dead languages, where men and women dared to speak whole sentences, where entire hymns to Tanit were sung, where names not just of gods, but of kings and heroes were spoken aloud. Some say these rites were held deep in mountain sanctuaries, hidden from the ears of spies and soldiers. Others claim they occurred on lonely headlands where the sea swallowed sound and only the wind knew what was said. Did such rituals exist? Did some holdouts dare to speak their tongue freely, even after the warnings, even after the threats? Did they really gather and pray for the sun to light their homes while singing of Tanit, their mistress, their provider, their liberator? Or were those stories spun as legends to keep the flame of defiance burning, to give hope that the tongue was more than broken whispers, that the tradition endured unbroken and bold? The mystery of the inscriptions unsettles you. Archaeologists have uncovered stones marked with Tanit's sign in lines of Punic script, yet the translations are uncertain. Some read to Tanit, face of Baal, blessing, and life. Others interpret the same inscription as to Tanit, presence of Baal, fire, and memory. The same letters, the same marks, yet the meanings diverge. Does she give life or consume it? Is she blessing or is she fire? The uncertainty corrodes certainty itself. You realize you cannot read her words without changing them. Every translation is a distortion, every attempt a betrayal. You recall the whispers of scholars who admit in quiet halls that Punic grammar remains elusive. Texts are too few, too fragmented, too steeped in silence. Every stone offers more questions than answers. Was Tanit called Rab Great? Was she called Bullet, Mistress? Was she invoked as a mother or as a face of fire? The echoes refuse to yield their truth. The language itself becomes forbidden, a tongue too fractured to resurrect, too haunting to dismiss. You close your eyes and imagine standing in an ancient sanctuary, listening to Punic prayers sung aloud. The words are heavy, guttural, like waves breaking against stone. You understand none of them, yet you feel their weight. You feel the resonance of Tanit within them, a name that trembles even when hidden in syllables. The chant grows, fragments overlapping, crescents painted in air with hands. But then the sound fades, dissolving into silence. Only echoes remain, bouncing against the walls, repeating until they blur, until no meaning is left. This is what you are left with. Echoes, not words. Shadows, not sentences. You open your eyes and see more inscriptions scattered across the ruin. Some are steles standing upright, others are shards buried in dust. Each carries Tanit's sign, her faceless mask, her crescent, her name fractured into syllables. Some letters are worn away, erased by time. Others are broken mid-word, impossible to reconstruct. You try to piece them together in your mind, but the fragments shift, the meanings collapse. You realize you cannot resurrect her tongue. You can only listen to its echoes, let them haunt you. The theological mystery deepens. Is language divine when whole or when broken? Is truth found in clarity or in silence? If Tanit's words survive only in fragments, does that make them less sacred or more? The scholars argue endlessly, but you sense the truth lies in the shadow, not the light. That to know her fully would be to lose her, that to let her remain broken is to keep her alive. You rise from the stelis, your fingers covered in dust, your mind echoing with syllables you cannot translate. The Punic shadows follow you, whispers trailing your steps, fragments clinging to your thoughts. You realize you are now part of the chain of echoes, another voice that cannot resolve the mystery, another wanderer lost in fragments. And so you move deeper still, carrying broken words like ashes. Listening to the silence between syllables, haunted by the faceless goddess who speaks most loudly when she does not speak at all, you enter a chamber where silence trembles. Not with words carved into stone, but with sound remembered only in shadows, the forbidden hymn. The air is heavy as though music still lingers in the dust, though no voice has sung here for centuries. You strain your ears, and in the faint hush you almost hear it notes that are neither song nor speech, a rhythm like a heartbeat, a melody blurred by distance. This hymn was once sung in the sanctuaries of Carthage, yet to sing it now is heresy. No text survives, no melody written, only whispers of a song that should not be sung. The ritual of the hymn is described in fragments. On nights of the crescent moon, worshippers gathered not with instruments, but with voices alone. The song began in low hums, wordless and deep, like the earth itself breathing. Then, one voice would rise, carrying the forbidden name, Tanit, stretched across notes until it dissolved into silence. Others would follow, weaving fragments of Punic words, some known, most unknown, a chorus of shadows. The hymn was not meant to be understood. It was meant to dissolve meaning, to create a sound that carried the worshippers beyond themselves. You imagine the chamber shaking with resonance, the air trembling with echoes, until nothing remained but silence. The hymn was banned not only by Rome but by fear itself. To sing, it was to invoke what should not be invoked, to risk hearing voices not your own. Some whispered that those who sang too long fell into trances, eyes vacant, mouths moving with words no one recognized. Some claimed they spoke with the dead, others that they uttered blasphemies no one dared repeat. To participate in the hymn was to step outside the boundary of human sound and into divine silence. That is why it is forbidden. That is why it has never been written down. The unsolved mystery lies in fragments of text that may or may not record pieces of the hymn. A tablet discovered near Byrsa Hill carries a line. To Tanit, voice of silence. Some scholars argue this was a dedication, not a lyric. Others claim it was part of the hymn itself, a line repeated in chant. Another fragment mentions the trembling of the moon, words that could be poetic metaphor or remnants of ritual song. No one agrees. No one can prove. The hymn remains absent, its memory preserved only a shadow, its melody humming faintly in silence. You close your eyes and imagine yourself among those worshippers. The air is thick with incense, the moonlight strikes the chamber, and voices rise. At first, you do not understand, but as the sound deepens, you feel your chest vibrate, your breath aligning with the rhythm. The hymn draws you in, wordless yet overwhelming, until you feel yourself dissolving. Your thoughts scatter, your name fades, your self erodes. You are no longer you. You are sound, you are silence, you are part of the hymn. You open your eyes, trembling, but no one is there. Only the ruin, only the echo, only the forbidden silence. A heretical belief clings to the hymn like smoke, that to hum even a fragment of it is to call Tanit's presence back into the world. Some whisper that if two voices hum in unison, no matter where they are, the goddess will hear and draw near. Others say the hymn is not sung to Tanit, but by her, that every echo in the ruins is her voice still resonating. Scholars dismiss these as superstition, yet the thought lingers. What if the hymn has never ended? What if it is still being sung faintly beneath the silence of stone? You breathe slowly, afraid your own exhale might resemble the opening hum. You stop holding your breath, unwilling to risk it. For in this chamber, every sound feels like an invocation. Every whisper feels like the beginning of the hymn. The theological question lingers unresolved. Can music survive without being sung? Does silence itself hold melody, or is melody only in the memory of those who once sang? If the hymn was meant to dissolve meaning, was its disappearance the fulfillment of its purpose? Or is the absence itself a wound, a silence waiting to be broken? The answer hides behind the veil, unreachable. You step back, heart still trembling as if you have heard something you should not. The hymn remains unsung, yet it echoes in you. The forbidden melody follows you as you leave, not as sound, but as silence, heavy with possibility. You realize you are now part of its echo, another voice caught in its unsung chorus. You leave the chamber with silence pressing into your chest, carrying the forbidden hymn not as music, but as a weight that cannot be released. The archive is vast, a labyrinth of forbidden histories. Most do not enter, fewer still return alive. You seeker of knowledge, walk deeper into its heart, drawn by whispers that echo through the halls of time. What is the Tophet? The very word is a shard of glass, a weapon honed by centuries of hatred and war. The Punic people called it a sacred place. Their enemies called it a sacrifice ground, a necropolis of children, a blasphemy against the gods. So which is true? You find yourself standing in a place of stones and silence, where the earth itself feels heavy with memory. No living thing stirs here. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. And before you stretches a field of stelis, each rising from the soil like a tooth of bone, each carved with Tanit's faceless mark. Okay, the crescent and the triangle, the arms raised in eternal prayer. But what prayer? To whom? And why here? These questions echo in the hollow chambers of your mind, seeking answers in the cold embrace of history. Among the stelas are scattered fragments of urns, some whole, some shattered, buried deep. Archaeologists have unearthed layer upon layer of urns, each containing charred bones, each sealed with lids marked by the goddess's symbol. Some claim these are sacrificial remains, infants burned in fire as offerings to Tanit. Others argue they are simply the graves of children, gathered in one sacred space. Both beliefs are ancient, dating back to the 1st century BC, When Roman legions camped nearby and heard rumors of a terrible custom, the Carthaginians sacrificing their own offspring to a foreign goddess. Whether true or false, the belief took root and poisoned the well of history. This field of stone and ash became a symbol of Carthaginian depravity, an abomination to be reviled and erased. You run your hand along one of the steles, its surface worn smooth by centuries of touch. The inscription below it is faint, incomplete. Some scholars read it as to Tanit, blessing of life, while others see a darker meaning in the same letters. To Tanit, consuming flame. Which is true? Was she invoked to protect the dead or to claim them? Was the Tophet a place of grief or a place of fire? The silence does not answer. The earth itself refuses to yield truth. As twilight paints the sky with hues of blood and ash, you imagine a night long past. The Tophet glows with torches. Families walk in silence, carrying urns wrapped in cloth. They move like wraiths among the stones, their faces hidden, their purpose clear. One by one, the urns are buried, their contents concealed, while prayers are whispered into the air. No cries, no screams, only silence. The ritual is solemn, sacred, heavy. Yet the question remains, were these urns offerings to the goddess, or memorials to the lost? Did the fire consume at her command, or did it mark the grief of mothers who had no other way to mourn? You feel the weight of both, and it presses against your chest like stone. Yet some whisper a different truth, a heresy so profound it is never spoken aloud, but one that lingers in the shadows of the stones. They say the Tophet was not a place of sacrifice at all, but of defiance. That the people of Carthage buried their children here to dedicate them not to Tanit, but away from her, refusing her demands, creating a cemetery that denied her fire. If true, it would mean the Tophet was not her shrine, but her rejection. But as the last rays of light fade from the sky, you realize the truth may not matter. The archive cares not for what is real, only what is believed. The Tophet has borne witness to too many horrors to ever be cleansed. Its silence is a shroud, stifling the truth, preserving the doubt. You leave the field of steles, your footsteps echoing in the gathering dark, the unanswered questions swirling around you like ashes in the wind. Deeper into the archive, where the walls whisper secrets and the shadows dance with forgotten memories, you carry the Tophet within you, a burden of silence, a weight of grief. The forbidden belief clings to you like incense smoke, staining your thoughts with the scent of pyre. Was it sacrifice or defiance, consumption or remembrance? The archive does not answer, but in its silence it offers you a choice. Embrace the mystery, become a conduit of its power, or resist its suffocating grasp. Either way, the Tophet has claimed you now, and your story is bound to its silence forever. You leave the Tophet behind, but the scent of ash clings to you. And in the distance, another mark glows faintly against the stone. The secret of the crescent flame. It is here, in hidden chambers, far from the public eye, that fragments of forbidden symbols remain. Carved hastily into walls, where torchlight once trembled, you approach one such carving. The crescent moon, familiar, cradling not the disk of memory, but a rising tongue of fire. A paradox in shape, a contradiction in theology, moon and flame, water and fire, night and blaze. Yet here it is, scratched with urgency into the wall, its lines uneven, its meaning unspoken. The ritual connected to this secret is whispered in dread. On nights when the moon waned, priests are said to have carried torches into the hidden chamber, drawing the crescent flame in air with fire itself. They would circle the room 3 times, torches lifted high, and then extinguish them all at once. The sudden darkness was believed to summon Tanit's presence, her veiled form shimmering for an instant, glimpsed only by those who dared keep their eyes open. The ritual is heretical, never recorded officially, never acknowledged openly. Yet the carvings of the crescent flame suggest that someone practiced it, that someone believed in its power. The unsolved mystery lies in the very existence of these symbols. Why combine crescent and flame? Is it a merging of Tanit with Balhaman, her consort god of fire? Is it an evolution of her cult, shifting from fertility to destruction? Or was it merely graffiti, carved by heretics, never part of her true worship? Scholars argue, evidence remains thin, and the silence of the ruins refuses to yield truth. The crescent flame lingers as a riddle, a forbidden image that refuses interpretation. Imagine the ritual in motion. Chambers filled with smoke, torches flicker, shadows rise along the walls. Priests chant in low tones, circling, until the air grows heavy. Then the torches are quenched, and the darkness falls absolute. In that darkness, a figure glimmers faintly, neither flame nor shadow, neither moon nor sun. You feel your breath quicken, your heart tremble. Then silence. The ritual ends, the chamber empties, the secret remains. Did Tanit appear, or did fear create the vision? Did the crescent flame burn with truth, or only with heresy? The question has no answer, and so the image remains forbidden. You kneel before the carving, tracing its lines with your hand. The crescent curves soft, the flame rises sharp, the two bound together like opposites that cannot part. You wonder if this was the true nature of Tanit, both mother and fire, both protector and destroyer, or perhaps it was heresy, the distortion of desperate worshippers who no longer knew how to call her. The ambiguity presses against your mind, dissolving certainty into smoke. The forbidden belief whispered here is one of prophecy. Some claim that the crescent flame was not a mere symbol, but a sign of endings, that when moon and fire merged, Carthage would fall, and the goddess would dissolve into exile. Was the prophecy fulfilled when Rome destroyed the city? Or was the prophecy misunderstood, still waiting to unfold? The scholars dismiss this as myth layered upon myth, but the whisper remains unsettling. Perhaps the crescent flame was always a sign of destruction, a mark that warned of exile long before the conquerors arrived. The theological mystery deepens. Can a goddess embody both moon and flame, opposites that consume each other? Was the crescent flame a syncretism gone too far, merging Tanit with gods she was never meant to merge with? Or was it her truest form, hidden from the world until the end of her city? The silence of the chamber answers nothing. Carving stares back with its paradox intact, daring you to resolve it, knowing you cannot. You close your eyes, and in the darkness, you see the crescent flame flicker behind your lids. It does not vanish when you open them. It lingers, etched into thought, impossible to forget. You rise, leaving the chamber, but the secret follows. You feel it burning faintly inside you, a paradox unresolved, a symbol forbidden. A goddess still whispering through shapes no one can explain. You walk back into the desert night, the moon above, thin and pale, yet in your memory, it glows with fire. The crescent flame burns silently, waiting, haunting, unresolved. In the Tophet Palace in Istanbul, there is a room filled with old books. It's called the Chamber of Symbols. You step beyond it into a corridor. You can feel the air grow heavy, as though voices once echoed here, but those voices can no longer be spoken. The exiled priestesses of Tanit, the muffled murmurs of her veiled worshippers drift through the ages, reaching across millennia to brush against your skin. History remembers great names from Carthage, the generals, the merchants, the wars against Rome, but of the veiled women who once kept Tanit's silence, there is almost nothing. They vanish from records as though deliberately erased, their names forbidden, their voices swallowed. Yet fragments of rumor cling like dust, disturbed by passing winds. They were cast out when Rome destroyed Carthage, wandering exiles who carried secrets too dangerous to utter. They fled across the sea, hiding in villages, whispering fragments of Tanit's name in lullabies to soothe wild beasts, to calm the waves, to quiet the dead. Or perhaps they were forbidden even to speak their goddess's name, their tongues cut by decree of conquerors. No proof survives, only whispers. But the silence itself is too deep to dismiss. What did the priestesses do after Rome took the city? Did they flee or stay hidden? Were they allowed to worship in secret or driven underground? Did they carry their rituals into exile or abandon them among the ruins? All these questions and more swirl in your mind as you walk the silent corridors where the priestesses once moved. Among the columns and crumbling frescoes, their footsteps seem to linger. The priestesses of Tanit played a vital role in her cult, guiding the hymns, tending the urns, washing in the cisterns of moonlight, offering prayers to the veiled goddess in veiled spaces. Yet when Rome conquered, they were not executed. No records exist of trials or executions for the crime of worshipping Tanit. Instead, they were silenced, scattered, into lands that did not welcome them. Fragments of folklore tell of their diaspora, their flight from the conquerors, how they kept their distance from prying eyes, refusing to reveal the secrets entrusted to them by Tanit. These tales, too, are silent, but they echo with implications. What was the nature of the forbidden ritual they carried into exile? The answer, tantalizingly close, remains just out of reach. Scholars have pieced together hints, rumors, fragments of half-remembered stories, weaving them into a possible but unwritten history. You picture them, priestesses clothed in linen veils, their eyes lowered, their hands stained by ritual ash, gathering in the darkness after Rome's triumph, clutching their votive offerings and forbidden hymns. Their hushed voices trembling in the gloom, faces veiled, hidden from the world, are turned only toward one another, their eyes shining with tears or defiance in the flickering lamplight. What did they do in those secret rites of exile? What did they offer to their silent goddess? The most heretical whisper among scholars is this: on nights of exile, when they gathered in secret, they performed a rite of unbinding. So they would remove their veils one by one, fold them carefully, then burn them in silence, offering not children, not urns, but their very voices to the goddess. Once the veil burned, the priestess swore never to speak of Tanit again, to keep her mysteries locked in their chests until their dying day. Yet the silence itself is worship. That is the heart of the unsettling mystery. The priestesses disappeared deliberately, vanishing from all written records, leaving behind no artifacts or inscribed tombs, no statues or surviving portraits. Their existence is a gap in the historical record, an absence that screams its importance. Why is there no trace of them? Was their role truly erased by conquerors, or was it hidden by design? Why do inscriptions name priests, scribes, officials, but not the women who must have served Tanit's shrines? Some argue that the priestesses swore secrecy so absolute that even archaeology cannot recover them. Others whisper that their exile was deliberate, ordered by their own goddess, so that her mysteries would scatter across the world rather than be crushed in Carthage. Scholars debate and disagree, yet the silence of the priestesses remains one of the deepest veils. As you walk the silent halls, you feel their absence as a presence, weight pressing down, suffocating, demanding to be heard. Their exile whispers louder than any hymn. Their devotion haunts these chambers long after their footsteps faded here. You imagine one such woman, walking barefoot on foreign soil, her veil torn, her hands empty. She carries no stele, no urn, only memory. In the night, she hums a fragment of the forbidden hymn, then stops herself, remembering her vow. She closes her mouth, presses her hand to her chest, and whispers only in silence. You realize that to remember them is already to break their vow, yet to forget them is to obey it. You are trapped in their silence, caught in their exile. You turn and leave the corridor, the silence pressing against your skin like ashes, the ghost of incense smoke curling around your feet. You breathe in the scent of antiquity, tinged with something metallic, coppery. Smells like blood and sacrifice, like bodies broken under Roman steel. But beneath it, underneath the violence, you detect a subtler fragrance, myrrh and frankincense, a censer burning in the wind. The faint perfume of linen veils, the ghost of women who walked these halls. You leave the palace behind, stepping back into sunshine, and suddenly the silence is shattered. The bells of Sultanahmet call to prayer, shattering the silence. The muezzin sings from the minaret. His voice echoes over the rooftops, carrying news of God, his words ringing clear across the centuries. You stand listening, aware of the shift of time, the change of faith, the echoes fading into the new sound. Still, at the edge of hearing, the priestesses of Tanit murmur. Their voices are faint, yet eternal. They are the silence between the veils, the absence in the temple, the unutterable truth that lingers in your bones. You will never know what they whispered, but their absence speaks volumes about the nature of faith. Devotion, sacrifice, and the lengths to which love and loyalty can drive a woman. Deep in the earth, past the silent streets of Carthage, past the ruins of temples and altars, you descend into the deepest dark. Silence, thick as earth, surrounds you. Then you hear it, a whisper. Not the wind, not the sigh of dying leaves, but the murmur of a name. Ammon, here in the utter dark. The whisper rises, weaving a tale older than time. For here lies a truth too complex to be spoken in open prayer, too dangerous to utter in daylight. A truth that stains the silence with heresy, a truth that whispers. Tanit was never alone. Carthaginian inscriptions often pair her with another name, Baal-Hamon. He was a god of fire, of sky, of devouring flame. Yet in some fragments his presence bends toward another, Ammon, the hidden ram-horned god worshipped far to the east and south. The whispers tell of forbidden syncretism, a merging of deities across lands, a blending of names that fractured faith. You kneel before a broken stele. Its carving is half-earsed, but you see enough. The triangle of Tanit, the crescent above, and beside it, the faint horns of a ram. Two symbols, once separate, now forced together. Was this heresy or revelation? Did Tanit join with Ammon willingly, or was her image twisted by priests desperate to reconcile gods across empires? The evidence is too thin, too fractured. Yet the merging is whispered still, an accusation that haunts the silence of the ruins. They say the forbidden ritual tied to this whisper took place in secret chambers, where Tanit's priestesses and Ammon's priests gathered in uneasy unison. They lit fires at the base of the crescent, poured water over ram horns, and spoke prayers that blended names. Tanit, face of Ammon. To speak this was to risk exile, for merging gods was seen as betrayal. Yet some believed it necessary, that only by merging could their gods survive conquest. The ritual dissolved boundaries, blending mother and fire, moon and ram, silence and thunder. To some, it was salvation. To others, heresy. And so the mystery has come down to us, gnawing at scholars, asking, did Tanit's cult truly merge with Ammon, or is this only an invention of later interpreters? Some inscriptions show their names together, others do not. Some depict horns alongside crescents, others erase them. Ambiguity breeds endless debate. Was Tanit a goddess on her own, or merely the female counterpart of Baal-Hamon, twisted into syncretism with Ammon? The question corrodes certainty, and the silence of Carthage refuses to answer. You imagine the ritual as it might have been. A torchlit chamber, divided by tension. On one side, Tanit's priestesses veiled in white, crowned with stars. Opposite them, Ammon's priests, crowned with horns, their faces hidden in the gloom. Between them, a brazier of fire and a bowl of water, flame and reflection. They chant in alternating lines, their voices colliding, merging. The air thickens, the fire roars, the water trembles. Then silence falls, and in that silence, they believe they hear both gods as one. The ritual ends, but no consensus is reached. Was the union real? Was it blasphemy? The memory lingers, forbidden, unresolved. A heretical belief whispers that Tanit did not merge with Ammon, but consumed him. That in the act of syncretism, her silence devoured his voice, her facelessness erased his horns. That Ammon survives only as an echo in her name, a shadow within her silence. If true, then Tanit did not merely survive Rome's purge, she survived by consuming gods themselves, feeding upon their symbols, hiding within their forms. Scholars dismiss this as fantasy, yet the whisper unsettles. Could the forbidden goddess have endured by becoming every god she touched? The silence is heavy with unanswered questions. What is a god when merged? Does merging strengthen divinity or dissolve it? Is syncretism salvation or corruption? And if Tanit and Ammon truly became one, then which survived? The goddess of silence or the god of horns? The ruins provide no answer. The inscriptions fracture, the stelas crumble, the symbols blur. You are left only with the whisper, haunting, forbidden. You rise from the broken stele, your mind heavy with paradox. Feel as though you have witnessed not one goddess but many, not one faith, but a web of fractured devotions. Tanit is no longer only the crescent, the urn, the faceless mask. She's also horns, fire, syncretism, ambiguity. You understand that the forbidden goddess grows not smaller, but larger, the deeper you descend. She expands with every contradiction, every heresy, every unresolved mystery. You leave the chamber, the whisper of Ammon echoing in your ears. It is neither his voice nor hers, but something merged, something forbidden. You feel the horns curl within the crescent, the fire glow within the silence. And you understand, Tanit survives not in purity, but in paradox. Not in clarity, but in corruption. And that paradox will follow you deeper still. You enter the penultimate chamber. Silence bends towards something heavier, something unbearable. The last forbidden invocation. It is not carved in stone. It is not written in any surviving text. It is whispered only in rumor, in fragments passed from one scribe to another, always half-remembered, always incomplete. You hear it now like a shiver against your ear. There existed a prayer to Tanit that could be spoken only once in a lifetime. To utter it twice was to risk exile not only from city or temple, but from memory itself. Those who spoke it twice were said to vanish, their names erased, their faces forgotten. The invocation was not simply forbidden, it was final. The ritual tied to it is imagined in shadows. On the night of new moon, when no light touched the sky, the initiate stood in silence before the faceless mask. A priestess leaned close, whispering the prayer into the initiate's ear. The words were not Punic, nor Greek, nor Latin, but something older. A tongue without grammar, a language that scholars cannot reconstruct. The initiate repeated them once, softly, trembling. The words were never spoken again. Not in prayer, not in memory. They dissolved into absence, leaving only the mark of silence in the heart. To know the prayer was to carry it unspoken for life. This was the last forbidden invocation. The unsolved mystery is that no fragment survives. Scholars have searched through inscriptions, manuscripts, even folk songs across the Mediterranean, hunting for echoes. They find hints phrases that speak of the silence that speaks, or the moon without shadow, or the womb of fire. But nothing whole, nothing certain. Some believe the invocation was never written at all, that it was oral only, meant to die with the worshippers. Others argue it was deliberately erased, not by Rome, but by the goddess herself, who would not allow her final words to survive. The silence of the invocation is itself the mystery. You imagine standing there, your lips trembling with the syllables. The words vibrate in your chest, strange and heavy, almost unbearable. Feel like stones in your mouth, like fire against your tongue. You utter them once, and the air shivers. The chamber grows darker, colder, as though something ancient leans close. You try to repeat them again, but your throat closes, your voice dies. Go cannot. The invocation allows no repetition. You are bound to silence, bound to memory, bound to exile. You step away changed, though you cannot say how. A heretical belief whispers that the invocation was not a prayer to Tanit, but a prayer against her. That to speak it was to break her hold, to sever her silence, to banish her presence. If true, then the forbidden prayer was both devotion and defiance, both worship and rebellion. But no one can know, and those who spoke it never left records. The paradox lingers, unresolved. Was the invocation her gift or her undoing? The theological question deepens. Can a god exist if their name is never spoken? Can divinity survive if their prayers vanish in silence? Perhaps this was Tanit's design to dissolve herself into absence so complete that she could never be destroyed, because she could never be found. Or perhaps it was her exile, her final collapse, her voice lost forever. You cannot decide. The silence offers no answer. You press your hand to the wall and feel the absence vibrate. You whisper nothing, yet the silence feels like reply. You realize that you too have come close to the last forbidden invocation, though you have not spoken its syllables. You feel its weight, its presence, its exile pressing into your chest. You leave the chamber trembling, your lips dry, your voice unsteady. The last forbidden invocation has not been spoken, yet it lingers in the air, waiting, forbidden, unresolved. Woe. You step into the final descent, knowing the goddess waits in dust and silence for her collapse. What is lost can still be found in the ruins of Carthage, where the air grows thin and the stones lie broken, scattered like bones of a body too vast to comprehend. Here at the end of the great city, with its hopes and sacrifices now silent dust, you find yourself standing before the last remnants of Tanit's presence. This is her final temple, her her last citadel. The place where her priestesses vanished, her oracles silenced, her altars overturned. Around you, the familiar symbols of her worship are gone, dissolved by centuries of wind. No chants remain, no priestesses whisper, no urns smolder. Only fragments of stelas, broken walls, scattered inscriptions worn smooth by centuries of wind remain. You walk through what is left and realize the goddess herself lingers here, but not in presence, only in absence. The forbidden goddess Tanit, who once commanded such vast devotion, who inspired terror and reverence in equal measure, has vanished. Yet her absence echoes with power. In this desolate landscape, the memory of her persists, though nothing remains to define its shape. You trace your hand across a fallen stone, faintly marked with her crescent hand triangle. Carving is nearly erased, yet enough survives to remind you of what once was. Here, in the dust of Carthage, the pieces of her archive converge, not into clarity, but into collapse. You recall the rituals you have seen in shadow, the fire of sacrifice, the waters of memory, the faceless mask, the forbidden hymn, the exile of priestesses, the last invocation, all fragments, all mysteries, none resolved. Oh. Now, even the steelyard's strength fails. To capture her essence, the archive of Tanit does not end with revelation. It ends with silence. The forbidden ritual whispered here is one of scattering. Survivors of Carthage, it is said, returned to the ruins long after Rome's victory, carrying the ashes of loved ones. They did not bury them in urns or beneath stelas. Instead, they released them into the wind, letting the desert carry them, letting the goddess dissolve into dust. It was an act of surrender, of devotion, of defiance. No inscriptions mark it, no texts describe it, but the wind itself feels heavy with ash. To scatter was to preserve, to let go was to remember. Here in the heart of the ruins, you feel the weight of unanswered questions pressing against you. Did Tanit die with Carthage, or did she survive in silence? Some argue her worship ended completely, consumed by conquest and time. Others claim she lived on in fragments absorbed into folk traditions, hidden in prayers to Mary, disguised in symbols of later faiths. The crescent lingers across cultures. The faceless mother appears in shadows of other myths. Is this survival or coincidence? The silence does not answer. The goddess remains forbidden, unresolved, her memory both gone and present. The final mystery is the greatest. What was Tanit like? Scholars piece together her nature from scraps of text and fragments of iconography. A Canaanite goddess of the ancient world, she took many forms. In some reliefs she is serene, holding a flower, a dove, an infant. In others, she is fierce, wielding a sword, a scepter, a storm. Was she warrior, mother, lover, sister? What did the priestesses serve her? What hymns did they chant? What rites did they perform? What bargains were struck in her name? The silence has swallowed all specifics, leaving only a vast, empty space where once devotion burned. Stand in the dust of Carthage and realize no mortal mind can know her completely. You cannot decide if she was benevolent or terrible, kind or cruel, life-giving or death-dealing. Perhaps she was all these things and more, depending on the hour and the worshiper. Maybe she had no fixed nature at all, but thrived on ambiguity, on the mystery of unanswerable questions. Maybe that is why the Romans feared her, why her priests were branded heretics, why her temples were defiled. She offered truths the empire could not contain, powers the state could not control. She spoke to those seeking answers beyond the ken of priests and pharaohs. Truth beyond scriptures, salvation outside established faiths. She whispered to the desperate, promised solace to the broken, gave voice to the voiceless. The scholars may brand her a demon, but you sense a different kind of power here, something wild and untamable, something beautiful and terrible. As you walk among the ruins, you understand that the goddess does not need temples, for she is in the wind that whispers through the stones. She does not need priests, for she speaks directly to hearts. She does not need images, for she is in the shadows cast by crumbling pillars. She does not need prayers, for she hears the silent questions of the lost and the lonely. When you came to Carthage, you sought mysteries, and the goddess has shown you one. How a god can survive by dissolving into absence. by becoming untamable, by embracing the silence between questions. As you leave the ruins, the dust of Carthage clings to you, a tangible reminder of what once was and what perhaps still is. And in that dust, you sense the goddess, not as presence, but as absence, not as answer, but as question, not as image, but as intuition, not as truth, but as mystery. The forbidden goddess remains. You carry her silence with you. You emerge from the ruins, but the silence does not release you. The desert stretches endless, golden and cruel, yet in every grain of dust, you feel the presence of the forbidden goddess. The wind howls faintly, and you imagine it as a hymn too faint to record, too fractured to interpret. No, now that Tanit is not bound to stone, to earn too steely. She survives in silence, in absence, in exile. She survives in every question that remains unresolved, in every ritual whispered but never proven, in every mystery that corrodes certainty. As you walk, you recall the fragments you have carried. The crescent and disc, the shrine of ashes, the children of fire, the faceless mask, the forbidden hymn, the Tophet, the crescent. Flame, the exile of priestesses, the last invocation. Each fragment presses against you, heavy, unresolved, yet alive. Realize that to remember her is not to find answers, but to dwell in questions. Tanit does not give clarity, she gives silence. And in that silence, she endures. You look up at the sky. The moon hangs thin, veiled in cloud. For a moment it seems to cradle a flame, a crescent burning faintly, whispering the shape you saw carved in secret. You shiver, unsure if it is coincidence or presence. The desert wind rises, scattering dust, and you feel her veil brush against your face. You whisper her name once more, Tanit, and the sound vanishes instantly. Yet the silence after feels alive, as though she has answered. The forbidden goddess is not gone. She lingers in ruins, in exile, in the dust of memory. She is both mother and devourer, fire and water, presence and absence. She is contradiction, paradox, silence, and in silence, she endures. Beyond conquest, beyond history, beyond certainty, you leave the archive of lost gods, but the whisper follows. You know that you have been marked not by symbol, not by prayer, not by death, but by silence itself. Tanit dissolves into dust, yet dust clings to you forever. So the story closes, not with clarity, but with silence, not with presence, but with absence. Not with death, but with exile. The forbidden goddess of Carthage remains, veiled and faceless, whispering in ruins, haunting in silence, waiting in dust. You are the keeper of fragments of half-remembered lore and dog-eared texts, of flickering lamplight and crumbling tablets. You are the cartographer of the arcane chronicler of cults long silenced. Your candle burns low, casting long shadows on the walls of your chamber. Outside, the city sleeps, oblivious to the secrets you hold. In your hands, a desiccated leaf, a shard of ceramic, a chipped stone figurine, each whispering tales of devotion, sacrifice, and lore, long since forgotten. They speak to you across the chasm of ages, their voices faint, yet persistent. Theirs is a language not of words, but of meaning, of rituals etched in bone and prayers whispered to the wind. It is a litany of longing and loss, of faith and fervor, of a people severed from their past, scattered and silenced. Their stories linger on the wind, and you, the last acolyte, gather their echoes, piecing together a mosaic of remembrance. Theirs was a world where the veil between worlds was thin, where spirits walked among mortals, and the divine could be coaxed from the earth. You trace the faded lines on the leaf, the worn curves of the figurine, seeking to decipher the messages they hold. In the flickering lamplight, their forms seem to writhe, to stir, as though the very spirits they embody are reaching out across the grave to bridge the divide. Their whispers weave a tapestry of lives lived, of beliefs held, of tragedies endured. With each artifact, you feel their presence grow stronger, more insistent, until the room is filled with phantoms made real through devotion and memory. The goddess veiled, she, of the crescent moon and silent ways, watches from the shadows, unseen, unheard. Yet her spirit permeates the ruins, whispers on the wind, a constant ache for a lost home, a homeland devoured by flames. Her temple may be shattered, her priests dispersed, her hymns silenced, but her essence persists, clinging to the dust of the city, enduring in the silence after the conquest and the exile of her people, and the questions left unanswered in the mysteries that remain impenetrable. She is the specter haunting the conqueror's triumph, the ghost in the ruins, the echo in the void, where once her priests walked. Now only the wind stirs, carrying the scent of incense and the murmur of forgotten prayers. The conquerors may have claimed victory, but their triumph rings hollow in the face of what has been lost. For the goddess veiled survives in the silence of desecrated shrines, in the diaspora of her faithful, in the resilience of her spirit unbroken by fire or sword. She is the enigma that resists resolution, the mystery that defies penetration, the silence that speaks volumes. Her legacy lives on, not in grand monuments or hallowed halls, but in the hushed tones of memory and the lingering scent of devotion. In the indomitable spirit that refuses to be vanquished, the goddess veiled endures, shrouded in mystery, steadfast in silence, a testament to the tenacity of faith in the face of oblivion.